Headwaters Science Center Live. We're doing our 3:30 show again. Lately we've been doing these river bioassessments, and it got me started on the next point, which was how do we preserve some of these species. And we've been finding good stuff. Again, we found this and we did it. We're going to do an assessment, and since we've done that, if you're keeping tune, we're going to do another assessment, and we're just to show how robust this has become. Even a week later, we're seeing a lot of different things, but we're still getting similar marks. Now, for this one here, remember, for those of you who haven't been tuning in, we have a species diversity where we reward, and also we have a weighting factor where animals that are most intolerant of pollution get a factor rating of 4, whereby animals that can somewhat tolerate pollution, but generally you find in good water, you get a ranking or a weighting of 3. Down further here, we get animals that can tolerate much more pollution, ranking of 2, but they're still a little intolerant, and then the things that can live right in sewage, you get a 1. Now, just because you find things in the 1 doesn't mean you're in the sewage. It means that the more you find, and these are not exhaustive, this is not all and only what we find. These are organisms that pull their category well, and so they're here. So what we do favor is things in the intolerant category, things in the somewhat tolerant category, and then overall how many species we have. Let's quickly add up our numbers today, and we've got 12 there, we have 3, so that's a 12. Here we've got 6, that's 18. Here's 1, and I'm going to make an idea, because I want to expand this intolerant bunch, because one of the things is that we're sort of on the edge of the water penny, so I want to take that one out, and I want to add, if I can find a second species of any of these, then I give it a 2. Now, it's not a 4, but it's a 2. I think it's fair, but we gave it an extra 2, and that gives our ranking of 14, 20, 21, exactly what we've been finding, 20, 21. So because that helped us keep the index the same through 3 different assessments, essentially, we're going to say it's legitimate. You can argue, you can debate. I'm willing to have that debate, and let's work this through. But really, today's show is about how to preserve some of these animals. Now, the star of our show is, if you move right in here, let's get the light on it. This is a creature that's, lo and behold, I'm going to put it over here under the light so maybe we can see it a little better. This is the stonefly. And if you can see it in there, it's a robust little thing. Here's your camera on there. It moves and moves. I got one under the microscope and it jumped out of the slide. So that's also where I found the mayfly. But this is the star of the show right here, and he's going to give us life for the show today. That's the stonefly that we have found here further south than we have in a long time. So sometimes environmental news is bad. Okay, let's be realistic. Often environmental news is bad. This is good environmental news. We are seeing things further down along the Mississippi and past the city of Bemidji that we hadn't seen even just a few years ago. So this whole sample in general, while that's the star, is packed with these others, these caddisflies. We've got 2 main kinds. Let's look at this other bunch of caddisflies over here, which brought our ranking up. These are the ones that are case builders. They live inside these little hunks of debris that are, here's one that's showing itself out. Well, here's one in here that's showing itself out. They find a hunk of debris, maybe a hollow hunk of log, and they live in those. These other ones that are squiggling about that don't have cases on, these are the net spinners. So there's our second species of caddisfly. And while we didn't give it a 4, we gave it a 2 because we found another species of caddisfly. If we'd have found a third species, I'd have gone just 1 more. I would have not given it a 6th one. So we're trying to make this thing work, and we're also trying to make it work well for us. So let's preserve those things. Now, in a pinch, isopropyl alcohol will work 91%. It's a little hot, so meaning it's a little bit too concentrated. We really want 80%, so I'll just cool it off with a little bit of water. That's pure water, and then that can be used as a preservative. The preferred preservative is ethanol. Now, pure ethanol is regulated by alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and so he has to sort of, but we've got the stuff that we need for preservation here, and it'll work. Now, one of the things you have to remember is that a species to be preserved has to tell its story, and its story is where it was. And how do we write the story? Well, we could write a book about it, but what we do is we put the story on this little card, and the story has to tell these most important things, which is we can't always ID all the way to species, but we want the family name in there. And in this instance, it's Perlatidae. excuse me, some of these family names. It's Plecoptera of stonefly. So if you know about these kind of organisms, stoneflies are actually a little bit rare, and that's who we're going to preserve today. So given that we have to write real small on these little pieces of, I use cardstock and pencil, and that'll preserve itself right in with the animal. This is one of the most important tools you can have when you're writing small as you can, and that is a sharpener. You need to get that pencil as sharp as you can because you got to write as small as you can. And the information you want on there is the species. The common name is a good start because that's how most people know this stuff. And then the family name. This is Plecoptera, but and that's sort of the next level up. But also where it was found. And so I've got the GPS coordinates here. So if someone else wants to go hunting for them, this is the place. 47.482 and then negative 94.727. Also, you want to put the date. And the time is nice, but you have to, but to do it a real service, you want to put your name on that. You sort of own that specimen. And sometimes maybe you've got another, for instance, a collections manager that might have just joined your staff. They might want to know who this was. And so then if they want to hear the story, Lee, didn't we hire a collections manager?
Well, not manager.
No, collections collector or organizer. Whatever we'll title him. He's our new home. And so he can say, oh, James found that. Let me hear the story. So if there could be a calling for these things somewhere. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do that one well and do it right. Again, we can use that in a pinch, the alcohol, but we're going to use the ethanol. We're going to use the good stuff. And one of the things to think about is to use, did our guy get away? Where is he now? He's over here. Okay, is to use one that's about the right size. And also the paper, well, it doesn't fit in the top. Well, you can just kind of curl it and then it does fit in there. And you want to put it in there so that the information is on the outside and the nice white background actually gives you something to look at the animal with. So here's our ethanol. Ethanol is just an alcohol that's made from corn. We actually put it in our car engines. And that's not the one I had for that. This is the one I had for that. This is the dry one.
Just so you know, questions are absolutely allowed. So
I'm going to put a little bit of that in there.
Jump right in. Okay.
We have a live audience here too, and we also have you out on the internet, part of our audience. Let's put that back in there, and we have and now this little animal is going to take a ride into our vessel here. Let me see if I can find my perfect tool. Here's the tool I want. We want to make sure it doesn't get crushed. Here's our star again. Is a stonefly. I have one under the microscope, an even smaller one, but I'm going to just take him, and now sometimes he's not that easy to get, but I got him in there, and now he's in there, and he won't last long. Just don't look, guys, if you don't want to see it. He's in alcohol. He's essentially in moonshine. So he's in the moonshine. He's swimming around. It won't take long, and there he is. He's being consumed by the moonshinery. And so there's our stonefly. And so we have found, and now we have collected stoneflies from another thing we might do. We might take, and this is of interest too. I'll make a thing for that too before I put it together. I'll take a bigger one and I'll collect some of these damselflies. Now, a few weeks ago, before we were out there, all you might have seen were dragonflies, but now we're seeing all kinds of damselflies, and we'll put some of the best and biggest of those in here.
I wondered what that was. He was swimming around in your... Yep,
those are some damsels. Those are the fish don't like to eat them too much, so we're going to put a couple of them. Sometimes it's okay to put a couple in. Oh yeah, and especially if you have small things, you might want to put more than one in there just so they can be seen. Now we'll make a marker for that so we don't lose track of what that is, too. But again, this bear with me. We're going to get this index working right, but you can see that we got a lot different. Here's one of our caddisflies that are showing themselves for us right there. It's kind of peeking out there. Can you see that one? We gathered them in here.
To the camera.
I'm not sure if he's going to cooperate. Sometimes they'll peek out of there. Can the camera see that one? There it is. Now it's ready. You can see those are the ones, and sometimes you miss these. I find these on the bottoms of logs a lot of times, and that's where I got the most of this stuff. Here's a whole bunch of young spinners on there, fingernail clam on there. There were some good things on here. I didn't look this over. There's a lot of those spinners on there, but it just had, again, it was amazingly accurate, this index, for 3 times in a row at the same spot. But I actually went back for this guy because, and there he is, because he was a special creature, that stonefly, and I had up to now just found the larva, or I mean the exoskeleton of emerged ones. And so I was happy to find one here. Here's another caddisfly. I'll put that over in a bunch. Was happy to find this one here in the living form, and I've got a small one here, so I know that I have more coming. Here's a microscopic one that you probably won't be able to see, but there's another stonefly in the smaller form. So we're getting generations of them, and we're happy to see that this is a population that is south of Bemidji, past the first city on the Mississippi River, which is, you know, and we've been talking about these animals for over a week now, and we're saying, you know, this is good. This says that treatment plan is working. Now, there's a couple more things we'd like to get it to capture, but if we're seeing this kind of a collection of insects and in this form, then we know that we're in a good place for fish. And this stuff is what the young fish eat. In fact, where I was gathering today, I couldn't catch one fish with a little D-net if I tried, but there was a lot of shiners in there. There were a lot of perch in there. There were a lot of young fish about this size that were feeding on this stuff, which was kind of being pushed through the water off of the protective tree branch that had fallen in the water. That's often a really good place if you're looking to collect creatures like this. You want to look for structure. Down trees in the water. A lot of people go, oh, get that tree out of the water. No, leave the tree in the water, because it's actually really good habitat for some of these things that feed fish. And you'll see fish swimming around those fallen trees. So, you know, a lot of times we like to clean things up. Same thing with trees in our yard. No, leave the dead trees up. They provide homes for birds. The trees in the water provide homes for insects, and give that ecological integrity that we seek out here in the North Woods. So here we are again from Bemidji, signing off from our Headwaters Science Center live show. Are there any questions out there that people are pushing at us? If not, our local audience had to get on its way. They had an appointment. They assured us it wasn't us. So for those of you that stayed tuned throughout, you know it wasn't us. So today we learned how to sample. Again, to review, we prefer ethanol in a pinch. This at about 80%, which means I got to cool it down a little bit. Yeah, it's sold in 70%, but that's not quite enough to get all the way through the tissue. So I just put a little bit of pure water in with that, and that made it about 80%. And generally speaking, when you use alcohol, you want to let that be in there for a while, and then you'll rinse through it. It'll cloud up, sometimes get a little darker, and then you'll rinse it through and get it freshened up. Our last collector used alcohol all the time, but the preferred substance is ethanol. Again, grown by our farmers right here in Minnesota. So while it does push our cars, it also captures it preserves our animals here. So that'll be there for all posterity, even though that animal lost its life, gave its life for us today. It's going to be there for us to look at and know that we have seen these stoneflies at this time, in this place, right now. So that's where we were going today.
All right. Just want you to know, we're open 7 days a week. That's Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5 o'clock. We were packed today, just like yesterday. We were absolutely packed this afternoon. We love seeing the people coming. And thanks to Beltrami Electric Cooperative, they brought us this show by providing us a generous grant through the Roundup